I'm Poornima Nayar, and I'll be talking about helping yourself to be a part of the Umbraco community. A bit about myself. I'm a freelance developer. I've been using Umbraco for the past 7 years. 2011 was when I started the dive into Umbraco, I think. I'm also part of the pull request team. Yay, happy to be a part of it. I'm from UK, Langley, Slough to be precise, and you can reach out to me via Twitter or connect to me via LinkedIn, email, or even go have a look at my website, which is probably a carbon copy of what I've put on LinkedIn. Straight into the topic. So, what is the Umbraco community? So, it's us people who are in this room, people who are out there. We all have something in common, which is Umbraco. We love the product. We love each other as a community, and that is what the community is all about. Now, what is the significance of this community? So I'm going to nick something which Kim told us this morning. Umbraco is essentially three things. Of course, it's the software, the CMS. Secondly, it is a company itself. And third, it's us, the community. So that actually means we cannot talk anything about Umbraco without mentioning the family, which is the community. So I want to take your attention here. Oh, where's the mouse? On this website, that's the HQ website, and it's their work page. And HQ talks about us as the beloved extended family. So we are the friendliest .NET open source community in the world. We are happy to share the information and experience with others. And we are quite large in number. 200,000, Kim says it's 225,000 across the world now, which is great, even better. We are totally cool. We are so casual and so cool that we can discuss Umbraco packages while eating spicy hot wings. That's funny, I thought. And the special thing about us is we beat the online barriers. We become meetings and gatherings like this. And we are totally casual about it. It's a day when we have fun. Personally, I look forward to these festivals. So it all talks about a lot about .NET and open source and all sort of things, but it's not just for developers. You can be a part of the community if you really want your voice heard. If you care about the product, if you care about the community, just step in, be a part of it. You can get your voice heard. There's the Umbraco practitioners group for that. So if you are a UX person, UI, a tester, project manager, as long as you have something to do with Umbraco, come join, be a part of it. You can have fun and a lot of learning as well. Now, why is the community or being a part of the community so important? Of course, we are dealing with your daily work. We might have those old issues cropping out of nowhere. Of course, you need the community's help for that. Someone might have sorted it out there, and you can get an answer to your questions there. You might want customizations. The answer is packages. Someone might have done cool packages out there, and you need to know where to look for that information. Finally, it is people we are talking about. We all have something in common. As I said, it's Umbraco. And out of this, you might even gain a friend for life. So there's a very human aspect to the whole community thing as well, which is something I completely love about the community. So there are various ways and means of getting yourself into the community, and that is what I will be talking to you about. I'm going to talk about my background a bit now. So as I said, my journey with Umbraco started in 2011. I started working with 4.7 of Umbraco. Before that, I was a web application developer, but CMS was not a new concept to me. I was working in a private university in the city of London, and I was supporting their corporate website using a completely different CMS, nothing to do with open source. So the idea of CMS was there, but it was something very different from Umbraco, even in the way how you would develop, the look and feel of things, everything was different. Even the basic idea was different. Because with that CMS, all the content editors could do is click, edit, delete a portion of the page and add in your new content, and that's it. I then landed up at my first digital agency role, and the prospect was I have a chance to pick up Umbraco. Yay, exciting. because I was hearing this name quite often in recruiter emails, and who wouldn't want to pick up something which is out there? And that was very exciting. So into the job, it wasn't very easy because, of course, you have a new thing to pick up. And I was thrown in the deep end. I had another developer with me, but even then, delivering or seeing a project into the reality of having 4 different websites in a single install of Umbraco, that is quite a big task for any newcomer into Umbraco. So went back to the basics, opened up the book that was available there, used the other projects which the agency had done as the example, gained as much knowledge as I could from the documentation which was available out there then, and maybe blog articles. But at the end of the day, it did help me through the job. It was live, but since then I've just loved Umbraco. It has stayed on with me. It was a brainless choice, no-brainer choice that whatever I want to do, I want Umbraco to stay with me. So primarily because there was the CMS which never stood in the way of the content and the website. It was 2 different things, and I could have beautiful websites out there and it would never come in the way of that. So I changed my job, and then I became a mom, and I decided to make this huge change in my career, which is to go freelancing. So Umbraco was always there with me. It is quite niche, so it was undoubtedly my choice. I need to focus on Umbraco. What now? So I have the knowledge. I know I can get through my job, but that's not good enough to be a freelancer. You have to be really, really good at what you do. My aim was to make sure that if I'm presented with a set of questions, I have the confidence to answer, say, most of them. But if you don't know, at least have the knowledge and confidence to say, let me get back to you. I know where I can find the answer for this. So that is where I wanted to get myself to. And then I started looking at ways and means of doing that. So then I realized I'd never been to any of the festivals, and there's a UK festival happening quite regularly every year. So it was November time. I went into my first UK festival, 2015. I think it was the biggest festival till then. It was quite a huge turnout. Grey weather though, very chilly. I remember that very clearly. But it was a huge turnout. I had a friend with me. I knew which sessions to attend. But that's about it. It was a pretty boring day as far as I was concerned, because I was just sat in a corner doing nothing. And I didn't want to be that, because I knew that these festivals and gatherings are there for a reason, which is meeting people. That's where sometimes you learn things just on the back of a very casual conversation that you have. I'm that kind of a person. I can never open up a book myself and read something. I need people to tell me something. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Let me go and find out what's that. So that made me go into the festival. And that is where the whole idea of community dawned upon me. I saw that there's a very active community, a community which is completely focused on the product. The HQ are very passionate about the community as well. So I should probably try and become a part of the community. I don't know whether I can get involved. Contributions and that sort of things was like miles, like light years away for me then. But hey-ho, I had to be a part of the community. So that was the biggest takeaway for me that day. And then this hashtag happened to me. So those days I used to have the tweet deck open with a filter for Umbraco, but there would be days I wouldn't even bother going onto Twitter. I'm not really a social media person. But into my first contract, I had other developers with me, and they directed me to this particular hashtag on Twitter. So I went in and I figured out that there's an active community out there. So discussions, some really cool discussions. If there's a nice blog article, that's there on it, so which means that I can quickly spend 2-3 minutes reading that. So there's a good active community out there. So I started following conversations, I started following people, and I think it really helped me in the next festival, UK festival I went to, that it was just a matter of putting a face behind the names of the people. It has even helped me in my first Code Garden last year when I went and spoke to many people. They shared the same idea. Because we have an active community on Twitter, it makes the world so much more smaller. And of course, it's just not fun conversations. There's real information, because as you can see, word of mouth always travels faster. So it is a nice place to gain updates as well sometimes. Some of the nifty little features I see in Umbraco, sometimes I pick up from Twitter. So yeah, it's quite a useful place to be. And it was, of course, nice when people started recognizing me as well. So I think anyone who wants a head start into the community, Twitter is a place. I think make it your friend and it will be worthwhile. I've been speaking to people as a part of prepping for this talk. Nathan, who was an Umbraco MVP and most recently the Content App Competition winner, he says, I'd never really been a big Twitter user until I realized how much knowledge was being shared. I think that was probably where the growth of the community is most obvious, in the depth and breadth of Umbraco discussion on Twitter. That conversation is really, really valuable. I think it pretty much sums up everything that I said. But being a social media, it can be very distracting. So try to find a balance. But if you have that balance struck early on, I think this is going to be one of your best friends out there. Moving on, r.umbraco and forum. So let's talk about r.umbraco first. Of course, it's the site owned by HQ, aimed at Umbracians. I think this should be the first and best friend of any Umbracian out there. And it contains every information that you can possibly think of about Umbraco. Some cool and some really technical as well. When I mean technical, information, documentation, and release notes. Of course, it's the home to the forum, which I will talk to you in a second. And of course, there's a brand new community area. Not brand new, it was introduced last year, but it is out there. There's a community area focusing on just people, which is always great. And that's where I want to divert your attention now to. So this was the blog post from the HQ last year, the reveal of the community area. There were 7 new features. GitHub, I think this has been taken off now. You can add your own content, your own blog post, RSS feed now. The Karma leaderboard, MVPs, the badges, and of course the community map. So this is the community area. So you can go locate yourself and probably a couple of Umbracians near you if you're lucky. And there's all sort of interesting information, people-focused information about, it is all about us on this area. You can catch up on the U profiles, know all about the meetups and festivals and Code Garden, the retreat, the documentation curators, and of course a little note on how you can add your own RSS feed. So go have a look. It's a lot of interesting information out there. But I think what is more specific is that, more important is that, even though it was Warren working on a lot of this, Anders, who is also another pull request team member, and Jenny and Martin, he's here, Martin, hey. So all of these fantastic people contributed to having these 7 features out there. So I think this is a great example of how we care for ourselves and each other in the community. We really believe in making things easier for others as well. It is a site for Umbracians, and of course it is maintained with the help of Umbracians, and of course the site is open source. So you can add your own features to it, you can have bug fixes done, and it will get merged at some point. Talking about forums, hey, that's the place to be if you want any questions to your technical difficulties at work. Most of the time, or 99% of the time, I feel I don't need to raise or create a new forum thread. It's just a matter of landing up at the correct forum thread using a Google search result, because someone has done that already, and it's just a matter of finding that out. And it's not only those help threads that happen these days. There are some really important and really nice discussions as well. So of late, there was a call for an accessibility team. This started as a discussion with Macy leading it, and it's all about improving accessibility in the back office. So pitch in and see. It's a long thread. Pitch in and see if you can help out, because A, it is a very good learning path, and B, you are contributing to open source, which is again a nice thing. I know there was a call yesterday. I've pitched in to help, by the way. There was a call yesterday, of course, which I couldn't attend, but try and see if you can help out. There's a Trello board. You can add yourself and try and see what you can do. And there's a fantastic participation from the community out there in the forums. So there are people who are very keen, they are very focused on helping others out. And while I can get you 1,000 examples of this, this is one of the latest ones. So back in Jan, there was a big shout out to Nick. Hot Chili Code is his Twitter handle, from Matthew, and he pointed out this forum thread. So what basically happened was that there was someone in need of a little help. Mizzle, calendar control, event display alternative for Umbraco V7. So he was, after this, he was having some issues, or he was after some advice. There were many people who pitched in, but Nick kind of stood out, especially because he wrote up exactly what needed doing, and he even put down some sample code to help Mizzle out. So high five to Nick. He's generally a very helpful guy. I'm hoping to meet him at the Code Garden. So this is an example of fantastic forum participation. I think from time to time, guys and gals from the HQ pitch in as well to help out. So that's about forums. And of course, forum participation is important to HQ. There's MVP recognition if you are a very active forum participant. Umbraco festivals and hackathons. So as I said before, it was at an Umbraco festival that the whole idea of community dawned upon me. So it's a very good starting point. It's a day to see community in action. So you can get the vibe of the community from there. You can have hackathons. So it's a day where you can do your own contributions to Umbraco. I think usually every festival has a day of hackathon these days. Workshops, this picture is from Code Garden last year, but I know for a fact that the UK festival regularly runs a couple of workshops, and the tickets go away like hotcakes if you are not signing up in the first few minutes. And of course, amazing talks. The organizers, they do one hell of a task, reaching out to the speakers, finding out the correct topics, and organizing all that for you. So it's a great place to see the community in action. Of course, it's a day of talks, but there's lots of food, you're well fed, and then conversation, which is the most important thing. Talking about hackathon, if you're someone who wants to be an active contributor to Umbraco, that's the place for you. Personally, for me, I was lagging way behind in contributions. I haven't reached the great mark yet, but I have jumped up, and a hackathon helped me with that. I think I have come to the conclusion that it was probably the mindset or the failure for my head to see Umbraco as a software or a web application rather than the CMS itself. I had to get into that mindset saying that, okay, this is a web application, I can work on it like anything else. And a hackathon helped me out with that. So I've jumped up in the number of contributions now. So if you're eager to do some contributions, that's the place for you. So you get to work with other devs. So if you have an idea in your head which you want to work on, yeah, hackathon might be the place for you. You can work with the help of others. Again, you can probably fix some bugs, or like yesterday we did, you can even lay the foundation for a nice package. There's another thing which you can do is documentation. Documentation, you can create pull requests again. So if you're good at writing documentation, go create a pull request at the hackathon. Again, a great way to help out. So even if you're a beginner, you can actually go in, attend a hackathon, because that is a place for you to be there because you are getting all the help you possibly can from other developers who've been there, done that. And I think that's, again, teamwork maxed. If you want to know all about the various festivals happening these days, this little site is for you, Umbraco-Festival.com, as simple as it can get. So there's a list of all the festivals happening. I think more and more will be added towards the year. So I think it started with the Australian festival this year and probably finished with the Swedish one. So yeah, nice. That's a bookmark. Keep looking at it. All the events are on there. So Martin comes back again. You all know him. So he has something to say. When I went for the first event and broke my barriers, mostly English language related, and shared my work with people there, I received a lot of feedback, performed a lot of chat, and met friends who are now my close friends, colleagues, you buddies. Straight after that, we've started our own community in Poland, and to be honest, day after day, I'm becoming more proud of being a member of such an awesome and friendly community, which for sure is the best communities, not only for open source, but in general out there. Completely reflect your thought, Martin. I think I've made some great friends here. Yes, I was just talking to Carol and Pete before, and of course Jacob before this talk, and yes, criticism from peers is a thing, but I think it is even more special here. We do it in the nicest possible fashion, and everyone is taken care of. Umbraco meetups. So if you want to meet local Umbracians, meetups are for you. Meetups are special because it's a very close or a smaller group of people, and it's perfect for me because I am very nervous going into a big crowd always. So it usually happens out of office hours, and it is usually arranged at a pub space or a local office space. And again, the organizers do a lot of job finding out speakers, introducing new faces into the community. So again, you go in, you have your drinks and maybe some snacks, you have your talks and discussions, and if I think for Christmas, my local meetup, we have the Christmas pub quiz, which is a lot of fun. I've been there only once. I'm not a regular attendee, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So there's a lot of learning happening at meetups, of course, in the form of talks and discussions, but there's a lot of fun as well. So on the day I go to the meetup, yes, I'm always looking forward to it. So if you can't make it to a local meetup, then of course there's the Umbraco virtual meetups these days. I think they meet like every once or twice a month. I don't know how regular it is, but the tweets generally go out once in 2 months or so. So I think there was a good participation from around the globe last time, and it's usually done over the weekend and generally at a time where everyone can kind of pull in. Again, talks and discussions happen, and if you're keen about starting a meetup in your area, the HQ can help you out. There is information on how you can approach HQ and how you can start a meetup in your area. So if you want to do it, contact HQ. I think Ilham is the person behind that at HQ. Callum, he's the London meetup organizer. Hi. He says, my primary advice would be curious and never stop striving to learn. Say yes to things, get involved in the conversation on Twitter or Slack and learn as much as you can. Come to meetups or an Umbraco-Festival or Code Garden, meet and talk to people. Don't worry about getting things wrong or people thinking you are not good enough. The Umbraco community is really embracing to everyone. I think meetups are a great space if you want to showcase your work. And of course, it is a very good entry or a starting point for yourself for public speaking. So so try and attend a meetup if you can. Try to be regular, and that's a note to myself as well, because I'm not a regular attendee. Code Garden, undoubtedly the biggest event in the Umbraco calendar. It is termed as the Umbraco Developer Conference, but I cannot think of it as a conference because it's so unique, it's so unusual, and I think it's beyond my power, like my expertise in English to explain what it is all about to you. I think it's something that you have to be experienced. You have to be a part of the festival and feel it, experience it. I think whenever I think of Code Garden, it's a 3-day Umbraco camp. That is what I always think about Umbraco, Code Garden. So yes, pro tip is try to attend at least one Code Garden because it's the place where you can see the community in its full form. Don't be nervous about going into a pool of 1,000 people from across the globe, because I think by midday of the first day, you will probably be just a part of the crowd and be doing exactly what others are doing. That's having conversations all through. It's a great festival to be, and it's something that I look forward to now that I've had my first attendance last year. I was quite nervous because I'm quite a reserved person myself, and as I said, I am terribly nervous going into a crowd. But I think it turned out okay. There were Umbracians on the train from the airport with me. I landed up the airport at the hotel, and next day morning I bumped into Carol. We have breakfast together, and I think that kind of became a tradition over the 3 days, and more and more people started joining in for breakfast and taking the day from there. It is nothing like a 9 to 5 conference where you go in, just have your sessions and come back. You go in, spend your day, you have lots of food. Again, you are very well fed at Court Garden. I think on the first day last year, we had the boat ride, which is amazing because we had amazing weather as well. And of course, you have the famous, infamous Umbraco bingo, which you don't want to miss. Again, amazing lineup of speakers. And I think it's a great way for me personally, I felt it's a great way to meet the HQ people as well, go say hi to everyone. Of course, I get to see Niels or someone else from the team at the UK festival, but I get to see all the marketing people and all the other girls as well, so which is quite nice personally. I tried to say hi to most of them last year. So try and attend a Court Garden if you can. It is very well worth it. So this is some of my pictures from last year. Sorry, I hope all of you can see it. So that is the Slave and Eagle, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Bingo. I think I've still saved my bingo and the remainder of the stickers. My girl loves stickers. That's Lindsay at the boat ride. And yes, I was curious about these when I walked in for the first time, the logs of wood with the Umbraco logo on it. It turned out to be a game at the end of all things. And that's us sat for the bingo. So all in all, great experience. Slack channel. So this is another channel where the community is quite active. So if Twitter is not the thing for you, try and sign up to the Slack channel at umbracians.chat. It is not HQ moderated, unlike the forums, but it is completely a community initiative. Again, there's an active community, there's all sort of things happening. You can find the new blog posts, articles. I know that Martin and Callum announced their Umbraco Coffee every week on Slack channel. And of course, if there's help needed, there's another channel for it. The accessibility team, which I spoke about, they have started a channel on Slack, so you can keep an eye on what's happening there too. Core contributions. So this is something I cannot just not talk about with Umbraco. So you can contribute to the core as well as the documentation. So these are the two repos which you can or should contribute to. Before I talk about the fantastic contributions itself, I'd like to talk about the two teams which are part of the community itself, which are formed by community volunteers. So there's a pull request team, which I am a part of, and the documentation curators team. So the documentation curators team has Sophie and Jasper at the HQ, and Jovan, Mark, Goodson, and Damian from the community. What they do is they try and help out with the PRs for the documentation. They review the PRs and help them get merged into the documentation on R. And the pull request team is hemmed by Sebastian, the head of PR at the HQ, and then it's got myself, Emma, Anders, and Dave from the community. We make sure that we review the PRs, test the PRs, do the code review, and get back to the contributor. So this was an initiative introduced at the Court Garden last year, and I'm quite happy that I signed up for it because I love helping out. And I think there's a blog post which goes out every month from Sophie and Sebastian on how that month has been, what are the number of pull requests, what's being closed, and probably a highlight on the biggest pull request or the biggest feature that we've added that month. So we try to get back to people in the 14-day period if we can. And of course, there's the fantastic contributions. I think there's been some fantastic features, some great bug fixes. Like when I am going through some of the pull requests in the list, there are some real edge cases that you wouldn't even have thought about. So there are some real passionate people out there. And of course, great packages like nested content and off late, the multi-URL picker that's made its way into the core. So there's a very passionate community out there who really believes in the product. Of course, they add features. And it's not only the contributions. What you can often see is if you just create an issue on the issue tracker, or sometimes have a little fix going as a PR, there are other people who pull in and then help you out, giving you suggestions on what you can do to make things even better. If it's a bug, why is it happening in first place, and probably how should it work, how should it be. So there's help from the community to take it even a step further. So on that note, there's this little blog post from Owain. He worked on the color picker last year, and he was asked to improve it, and we ended up having this at the end. And he shares a whole story on how the community helped him achieve what he did, because I think that was his first contribution. Very well worth a read. This is an example of some great collaboration from the community as well. So we've spoken about all these various ways in which you can be a part of the community. Now, what do you benefit? Awesome friendships. As I mentioned, it's people we are talking about. It's conversations we relate to, that we are on with the community. So Matt Brailsford, he has something to talk. He says, I think my earliest memory would be in competition with Lee to be at the top of the Karma leaderboard. In the early days, being at the top of the leaderboard was the place to aim for. At the time, Lee had been at the top, and I was helping on the forums and releasing packages trying to catch him. I didn't really know Lee at the time, but the competition is what made us good friends, and ultimately why we work together a lot these days. I don't think these guys need any marketing from me, but even then, I think some great packages have come out of them. Nested content, who hasn't used nested content? Doc type grid editors, and of course the code cabin. It's again a marketing initiative, isn't it? So yes, awesome friendships. You might be blessed with a friend for life. That's the human aspect of it. That's the softer skill aspect of it. One of the lovely things about the community, I think. Bigger and better things, writing articles, speaking at conferences and meetups, starting a blog, creating a brand for yourself. I can quite comfortably talk on about the first three things, because none of this was on my plan, or I was like a million light years from all these things in my life when I started becoming a part of the community. Never ever dreamt I would be doing all this, but in the last year, I've done an article for 24 days. Hey, that matters. Yeah, I'm talking to you now, maybe even more. I've got a blog, but I don't maintain it quite well, but I need to do something about it. So bigger and better things which are outside your daily job, things like this, which really makes you push yourself an inch further to deliver what you can do, or to make you yourself prove that you have that in you to do that, you have that capacity to do that. Creating a brand for yourself. I think Paul Seal from UK, he's an Umbraco MVP for his community affairs. I think he's a perfect example for this. He even delivered a talk last year at the UK festival, and that was about creating a brand for himself. And he achieved that using his website codeshare.co.uk. So he blogs and regularly writes tutorials using that website, a great website. So if you meet him at the festival or Code Garden, go say hi to him, really nice guy. And learning and career development. I think this happens at every single step. Every single day in an Umbraco community, learning happens, consciously or unconsciously. Emma Burstow, Umbraco MVP and a very good friend of mine, she says, I was so green when I found the Umbraco community. Only 6 months into my career as a developer, I've grown up with the help of so many people, colleagues of course, but so many community members who've been generous with their time too. Now I'm more experienced, I'm in a position to pay back that kindness by helping others, and that's been incredibly rewarding. Yes, so we embrace people, we learn, and we share that knowledge. That makes the community special. Satisfaction of doing some great work. I'm talking about this personally from my experience of doing all the contributions I've done so far and the work I've been doing with the pull request team. With regards to the contributions, I think it always makes me smile when I see some of the fixes I've made in action on the CMS. So something which makes me smile is always good, and I'd love to keep up with that. With regards, and also, with contributions, I think the whole mental process is quite rewarding and relaxing to me, because it's my way of zoning out at the end of the day. The whole process of finding an answer, finding a solution, I think that is quite rewarding in itself. And of course, it adds to your mental health and mental well-being. Being a part of the pull request team, I get to see some fantastic contributions. I get to see the way which other people think. And of course, I am helping maybe millions of people out there achieve what they want to do just by testing, reviewing, and helping the HQ merge that pull request into the core. So it's a great feeling at the end of the day. And I think when you do things which makes you happy, especially at work, it massively makes you productive, as well as makes learning fun at the end of the day, adding to your mental health. I've been talking to some people about what their thoughts on the community are. Do they have any early memories of being a part of the community? And this is what Neeta Natarajan, she's the Umbraco Navi Mumbai meetup organizer, one of the budding meetups in India, I would say. She says, the advice I would give is attend the virtual meetups, join Twitter, and follow the more famous, well-known Umbracians. They have a lot to say, contribute the open source package that are there, or at least get it up and running and perhaps get in a couple of PRs. The next could also be perhaps help with the documentation. I think she's pretty much summed up my 40-minute talking to these 4 sentences. I completely agree with her. I think what she also told me was that it was just a matter of her waiting to start this meetup, because at the meetup there were a couple of true Umbracians very happy and very enthusiastic about sharing their knowledge. Finally, from Bob, this has got to be my favorite quote. He's a community hero and he's one of the early Umbracians. I came to know he started using Umbraco when it was its version 2.7. It was a very nice chat I had with him on Twitter, but I couldn't put everything in here. But this is my favorite part of the whole lot. He says, you get out of the community what you put into it, and no contribution is too small. This community can be a very safe place to take a chance and is very rewarding and forgiving. So many fond memories, way too many to count. But honestly, my biggest shock when being welcomed into the community is just the sheer quality of friendships that I've been gifted with just by the simple fact of being a part of something. I just assumed since it was kind of work-related, it could possibly not contribute to my personal fulfillment nearly as much as it has. I say this often, but cannot be said enough. The software is great, but holy cow is the community an unexpected piece of magic that far outweighs the software itself. I don't have anything more to say than this. As I said, or as everyone so far said, the community is a very safe place. You just have to become the part of it. You just need to have that decision, or you need to make that decision to be a part of it. Once you get into it, I think you start flowing with that tide. There are all these community initiatives, again, like Script and 24 Days, and of course the meetups and the festivals, everything trying to get you into the forefront, bring new faces into the front. So if you're becoming a part of the community, you might come out being totally something different than you wanted to be, but in a very good way. So don't be hesitant, just dive in, take the dip, and then I think you'll just start flowing with the tide. These are some of the resources. The first one is all about contributions. So this was the talk Seb did at the UK festival last year. The second one is Paul Seal's talk about creating a personal brand. And the last one is an article which I referred to while preparing for this talk. Thank you everyone for being here. Fire.